to be able to introduce Arnold J. Carr, who's senior editor at Women's Wear Daily, with a ever-expanding portfolio. But one of his major areas of expertise is denim, and he agreed graciously to moderate this panel for us. We could not be more thrilled, and we hope this is a first and not a last. And I'm absolutely delighted that we are able to have Michael Morell from Ola Inc., Rebecca Duvall from Bluefin Research, Matt Baldwin. Matt, I'm sorry, I screw up a little bit on the name of your company, but I believe it's Baldwin Denim and Design. And Maurice Malone, is that right? Or did I screw it up completely?
Got it.
And then Maurice Malone from Williamsburg Garment Company. And the rest I leave to Arnold. You could not be in better hands.
Thank you.
Please welcome them warmly.
Thanks very much, and thanks to Lisa for her patience with me as I battled daily deadlines, and to my panelists as they waited for an outline of what we were going to be discussing today, though I have absolutely no fear or trepidation about their ability to discuss this category and this topic, and perhaps even drive it into the ground. I should also mention we have a couple of very important things to note here. To the far left, we have two Best New Menswear Designer winners. Morris, who won the award with the CFDA back in the 90s when he was doing Mode Jeans, and Matt Baldwin, who was named GQ's, I believe, Best New Menswear Designer back in February, and through those auspices, did a capsule collection for The Gap, which he'll be discussing with us a little bit later. Rebecca, who is one of my go-to security analysts when I need someone to discuss what all the hype and all the promotions in the market come down to in the way of profitability and sales. And Michael, who just this week was named head of the textile sales division of Ola. He's the president of the company, but Andrew, the founder, relinquished that responsibility, obviously leaving it in very good hands with Michael. So join me in congratulating him and welcoming everyone here. My task, I guess as the elder statesman on the panel, is to cover a little bit of the history of denim and how it's evolved from what was specifically a workwear concept, something that people wore to do rough work. We're not talking about going down and sit in front of a computer monitor, but people wore it in the mines and people wore it in the fields. For a lot of people, for years, there was a huge distinction between overalls and jeans. Jeans was a radical concept in a sense. And the name denim comes from the town in France, Nîmes. The fabric is the fabric of Nîmes, France, where it was developed. The idea of combining a indigo yarn and filling it with a white yarn and going against that, the warp and the weft, easily evolved, obviously, from that point, and became the signature workwear fabric, really, of almost the entire world. And by the same token, corduroy is corps de roi, cloth of the king, which is, so we have all these old world concepts that really found their place in the United States and in the colonies later on. Certainly the signature moment in American denim was, and it's been a subject of urban legend for so long that it frequently gets mistold, but Levi Strauss did not have leftover canvas that he wanted to use for tents, and instead he made them into pants, and that's how he got them. In fact, he was already a very successful merchant whose family had sent him out to San Francisco to begin a dry goods business. And an equally enterprising entrepreneur in Nevada approached him with the idea of, let's go together. I have a concept here for taking rivets and using them to reinforce the seams of pants to make them even more durable. So from its very start in the United States, and this goes back a mere 140 years, I believe the anniversary is this year, we had a design concept that improved the quality of the product. And that was really the first registration for jeans that we know of. As a kid, I knew, if I was going into the city when I was old enough to do so, back in the early 60s, you did not venture into New York City from Long Island with dungarees. They were verboten. And kids who tried to wear dungarees to public school were told to go home and find something else to wear. With the youthquake of the mid-1960s, suddenly those concepts began to be overturned. And the force for casual comfort became so great that the groundswell for jeans became undeniable and something that school authorities and others chose not to combat any longer. And that got a huge help in the counterculture movement of the later 60s, when, for instance, the rock group Jefferson Airplane was contracted by Levi Strauss to make a radio commercial because the chairman's son thought it would be really cool to do so. Suddenly, denim, which had always been vilified, think Marlon Brando, certainly think James Dean with his feet up in the car, and Giant, there had been a push to make these products acceptable. Levi was really a West Coast company at the time. Lee was its counterpart in the Midwest, and Wrangler was beginning to make some noise as a Western wear brand in the East. Those movements, though, were really kind of set back constantly until the force of youth culture really became just overwhelming and impossible to set back any longer. And from that point on, denim became acceptable fashion in schools. As we've seen more recently, it's become more acceptable in the workplace. It was a big deal in the 70s and 80s as you had casual Fridays and suddenly people were allowed to put their suits aside. Of course, I'm going contrary to trend here by wearing a suit today. They were able to put their suits aside and instead wear jeans. My dad ran a trade association which used to solicit charity funds for the March of Dimes, where people would pay for the privilege of wearing jeans to the workplace on Fridays. And obviously, we've come a long way since then. Taking it to the present day while skipping over entire decades at a time, since in the last 20 years, we've had this amazing outburst of what is known as premium denim. Generally, really well-made jeans at $200 and up. This doesn't mean that no one is selling jeans for lower prices. They certainly are. And in fact, in the last year or so, there's been a decline in the percentage of jeans that are selling at $75 and up. It's a $13 billion industry at retail in the U.S. It continues to grow, and even with the declines at the very, very high price points, which I think are becoming more consolidated as opposed to less popular, even with the declines that we've seen, the percentage of American apparel that is being invested in denim continues to go up. And when you take jeans and you add things like denim jackets, and Matt was nice enough to wear one today. I was hoping somebody would have a chambray shirt, but I don't see one on the panel at the moment. We've had this evolution into denim as the highest level of fashion. So it's made the circuit from workwear to, as they said in the program, rabble-rouser wear, and now to the point where the most fashionable people, the most fashion-conscious people, are wearing high-priced premium denim, most of it fairly neat, but not all of it. There's still a little bit of a layover from the grunge era where torn, tattered, destroyed, ripped, you plug in your own adjective here, is an important part of the wardrobe for a certain demographic. So to start with, I wanted to ask the two active denim merchants on the panel to describe a little bit about their businesses, where they're at right now, what is selling, what's important to the denim customer, and what obstacles, if any, denim still has to overcome. And Maurice, I'll give you the pride of place and ask you to tackle that first.
Okay, Williamsburg Garment Company is basically denim's basics company. I saw the need in the market for jeans that didn't have a lot going on. At the time, everyone was doing either heritage or premium with stitch details, crazy washes and everything. And it was a time when I wasn't making jeans a couple of years ago. And I had to go out and buy jeans myself, so I couldn't find anything. Everywhere I looked, it was either too much washing, too much embroidery on the back pocket, and so on. So I just wanted, I thought it would be a good idea to have a brand that was devoid of all those outer labeling, details, stitch details, and things like that. And Williamsburg Garment Company was born. And besides that, we did it at a really nice price point, providing a premium jean that was at a little bit over $100 at better stores. Kind of we're like the entry point at luxury stores.
And interesting also that you had a part of your business model starting out was not to over-distribute. You had a experience with heavy volume when you did Mo Jeans during the peak of the hip-hop era, and you said, initially that you really wanted to make sure that you were selling one good account
Yeah.
per city or area within a city.
Yeah, part of starting a denim brand is pretty rough business. It's a lot of competition. So I had to think of all the things that would make my brand stand out. And I know in business today, like customer service is like, just think of the last time you called a company and didn't get a push button, menu. I wanted my company to go back to the days where you knew the owner of the company, and it kind of had the philosophy of a candy store where the business owner, you can come in, you can talk to them. You got, for the first full year, I operated as a one-man company. I did the shipping, the design, the production. I didn't do the sewing, but I did a design and worked with the factories and answered every customer email, so I knew what my customer was saying, what they were asking for, what they liked, what they didn't like, and so on. And I wanted to also kind of inspire other people to know that you can build a brand on your own without major financing. I started with $3,500 and bought fabric. Got two women's and one men's style started, and I wish I would have did the reverse because our men's took off faster. But with just a couple styles, the company grew into about 22 styles in about a year and a half. And that's what else. Another thing is I knew I couldn't compete with big companies, with looking like trying to sell image, because that's what most companies do nowadays. So what I decided to do was sell the product. And if you go to my website right now, you see just product images, and sell the concept of high quality at a reasonable price. And that's what it's been pretty successful since I started.
And Maurice has been an inveterate blogger, and you've had the website up. It's been part of your business plan since the company started. Is that correct?
Yeah, the internet and Google have really helped our company. So I kind of, right before a lot of companies, before you started getting junk mail with SEO people trying to sell you, I kind of figured it all out and got a jump on a lot of companies. So if you Google raw denim, I'm probably going to be on the first page, even though I'm not close to being the biggest company selling raw denim. So. And
modesty probably prevents him from getting into this, but during the peak of the hip-hop era, Maurice was not only one of the pioneers of the large fit jeans that really kind of sustained the market during a weak period, but I believe that company built up to about $40 million in volume. He had been through the large company syndrome and all the demands that comes with. Just wanted to mention that parenthetically. Turning to Matt, even before Matt was involved in wholesaling, I believe, he was already doing some retailing in his native Kansas City, and he has 4 stores there now, 2 for the Baldwin label, and 2 for Standard Style. I always have to remind myself of that so that I don't say Suit Supply, where he has an exclusive denim distribution deal. But in addition to promoting the fine barbecue that you can get in Kansas City, Matt is becoming something of a monopolist with 4 retail locations in a fairly small within a fairly small vicinity, and has a great laboratory, I think, for checking out what the attitudes of customers are, and a really good base from which to judge that. Could you talk about that a little bit, Matt?
Yeah.
And also had a small business administration loan when he started his business, if I'm not mistaken.
I did. My wife, Emily, who's here with me today, we started our first clothing store in Kansas City 10 years ago. And we were at the young age of 25 and started this wild idea to more or less we were in LA prior to, and bring premium product and play kind of a high-low price point to the marketplace in Kansas City that was lacking a lot of these designer premium brands. And so, we were the very first to break everything from, the first 7 jeans, Diesel, Citizens of Humanity, and True Religion, as they all kind of came through the ranks of premium. So I've had a front row seat over the past 10 years to really watch this, market grow, literally buying and selling third-party vendor products. And so for me, it was a master's degree, in the apparel industry. I think that retail for me has taught me so much. I do have apparel manufacturing degree from FIDM in Los Angeles. But for me, it was being with the customer every single day and putting your heart and soul, your livelihood of your family on the line every day, and connecting with the community that I think really, I can reciprocate with a lot here of what we're kind of the heart and soul beyond of why we even started Baldwin Denim. And it was a need during the recession in 09 when, we were at one point, we had 30 denim brands in our stores. And when the recession hit, it was literally, as we all know, is a very tough market to sell a premium jean. So we went from 30 to 4, and those 4 vendors were, we had a very good relationship with them. They shipped consistent product. We could really rely upon them for goods at that time because, everybody was canceling orders like crazy. So at the time, we, a couple, buying seasons in, for myself, there was nothing new in the market. There wasn't that hot item that we were just, so passionate about to bring back to Kansas City, from the marketplace and, spread the good news of a new line that we brought back that we've been able to do time and time again to really drive the business. And so, long story short, I said, all right, well, I think it's time for me to get in the game. And I always wanted to do a brand, but it had to be at the right time. So I started with 3 fits that I knew was not in the marketplace for men's.
And this was in the men's market. You went into women's later.
That's correct. That's correct. And I had to establish the men's first. That was the important thing because what I've seen in premium over the last 10 years, if you start with women's, then you can never have a consistent men's business. If you start with men's, women will always follow suit. And I could talk about a handful of examples, but I think the examples are out there for the brands that, if the women are buying it first, the men really don't follow suit. And so for me, that was something I learned from Ralph, I think with, how he stewarded
Should we
Ralph Lauren.
specify that we mean Ralph Lauren and not Ralph Cramden or someone else?
Yeah. And so for me, I started with 3 fits with 70 pieces each for a run. I sold 22 pairs the very first day to guys, and I knew I had something, especially that was in 09 when the market wasn't great. But I brought similar to great fabrics, an honest story. I'm very open book of where I get my textiles. I don't believe there needs to be another denim brand in the marketplace, and especially in premium. But what we brought was, I think, the service side of it to the marketplace where we'd been in the community for 10 years and we built great relationships, and then we put product out there with my name on it that I could really back up 100%. And so the word spread into all the way into this last spring where I was named Best New Menswear Designer by GQ, and it was just a great honor to be put into the 2013 class. And for me, it was then time to tell the story. Prior to that, it'd been all word of mouth, all organic. The internet was very good to us early on due to a couple websites early on one of them was called The Denim Debate, which basically took dry denim with some influencers in the menswear industry, and they documented it monthly and talked about the breaking down of raw denim. I think that the raw denim and the selvage denim resurgence have breathed, I think, a new life into premium, where we are looking for fewer, better things now to spend our consumer dollars on. And so there is a consumer confidence there, but the expectations are higher. Their expectations higher on service, on fabrication, and so forth. And so we built this kind of organic reputation on this, and now we GQ last year named our store, our first Baldwin store, best place to buy denim in America, period. We offer a chain stitch hem. We also offer a darning machine repair. So our idea is to be able to keep a premium jean in your closet for literally as long as you still want to wear those jeans. We're able to actually facilitate that. So that's, to me, a value proposition. I think being the Midwest, we are very price sensitive in Kansas City, and if I don't bring a value proposition to the plate every single day with product, then I'm not going to sell very many pairs of jeans. So Sorry.
Obviously, the economic meltdown in 2008 affected every business, and you have the evolution that goes on with just about every important product category, where a large number of brands surface, and then the weaker ones obviously fade, the strong ones emerge. That was accelerated, obviously, by what happened with the financial community. But what about denim that you saw happening in 2008, prior to the financial collapse, told you that this was a market that was about to change? And did it tell you that it was about to clean up? Because both you and Maurice really came out with very clean takes on a men's jean before moving the business a little bit further. My grandmother's word was facetted, complicated, over-decorated, over-ornamented. How did you view the market in terms of design from that point of view? Did you have an inherent sense that it was about to clean up?
Yeah, I think just watching the customers, and I think when you watch something trend so hard one way, you better get ready to see it swing the other. I'd say that would be a good way to say it. And when you have a bunch of dragons and Swarovski crystals on pockets, the days are numbered, in my opinion. So and that's what was happening. I think it definitely went back to a simple something that when you put your money on the credit card down on the cash register, you wanted to get the most out of that product. I think that inherently, interestingly enough, is this notion, what I've kind of talked about, of creative workwear. That is, we are in a different day and age now, but we want a jean that we can really be able to take throughout our lifestyle. And to me, that simply put is dressy and casual. Darker fabrics you can dress up, lighter as you get into it, obviously are more casual, and you can't dress those up as easily. So I think that's even the dry denim piece of it, and the aging process and the value proposition of I think a higher quality textile that's able to take more of a beating as you wear it in all these aspects of your life. You're able to say, okay, that jean is worth $200. That's worth my money here. And then I think the clean aesthetic allows you to, again, be able to wear it in various aspects of your life.
Right. And Rebecca has worked both in retail and in the last few years, in the time we've known each other as a security analyst. We had a huge swell in denim sales from colored denim in women's. And while the color seems to have faded a little bit, if you'll excuse the expression, the skinny silhouette in women's remains extremely important. We were talking before, men want thigh room. Women want something that's extremely flattering, and while the color has kind of escaped from the market a little bit, that silhouette has remained really, really strong. And a lot of the retailers that you cover, the specialty chains that are usually doing private label merchandise and trying to cultivate their own brands, are still very, very attached to that. Is that something we can expect to see? Is that something that'll have perhaps a 5-10-year run? Or are we getting ready for a counter-reaction of some sort? I've seen a little bit of a sign of the return of the boyfriend silhouette in modified form recently.
I don't think that the skinny is going anywhere anytime soon. I think that everybody's looking for the next biggest trend. A lot of retailers out there I report on right now, like, you have your American Eagles, your Gap, that really have a large denim presence at their stores. They're struggling right now to find what's going to replace that colored denim, and I don't think that the skinny has necessarily done that. They've tried to bring in new silhouettes. They've tried to pump up the trends that were happening with the boyfriend. There was the high-waisted jeans, but nothing's been able to really kind of replicate the sales that those retailers saw from the colored jeans. But trust me, they're out there looking, and so any kind of new trend that they can catch on, they will. But it's going to take some time before that kind of cyclical process happens again, where you have that overarching trend in the market that everybody has to have and that everybody can make a dollar at getting.
And even with the drop in sales of high-priced jeans, sales of jeans generally, in terms of dollar volume, as well as unit volume, have really kind of maintained their level, and in fact grew faster than all apparel. You think that's going to be the case as we get through holiday and into 2014?
No, I do, and I think what's really interesting is what's happened in the market right now is that there has been a significant shrinkage in premium jeans, and then there's also kind of been this growth that's happening in a lower price point jeans. And as every retailer now has kind of taken on their own kind of denim category or their own denim wall, if you will, the market share has really been spread out. So I think that you'll still see the consistent volume in terms of denim sales, but it's going to be across a much larger market share. But I think that you're also finding, as this has happened over really the last year, like you have, Aeropostale and American Eagle and Gap and everybody having their own version of their own denim in their stores, you're going to find even that's going to start to shrink because it's not necessarily catching a hold for some customers. Like Aeropostale is still struggling. They brought in a whole denim presence in their stores for back to school, and it just didn't catch on for their customers. So I still think that you are seeing a spread out on the market share, but eventually that will start to shrink too, because people will start still going back to the people that really know how to make the denim. Some people are finding success in it. They're having their own versions, and they're becoming lifestyle brands, and so that's helping them. And some customers are taking to it. If if their pants fit you really good, their denim's going to fit you really well, and so they're able to capitalize on that. But I still think you're finding a shrinkage that you'll start to see, and you'll start to see that even though the market share spread out, it's going to start coming back to the people that really know how to make a denim.
Now, Michael, you have to go out and sell denim to people as well as some other fabrics. And Michael's organization, in addition to being a textile sales agency, runs a trade show where people who sell denim and the component parts of denim, as well as production of denim, all gather together in what has kind of become an indigo thing. You just walk in and you're bathed in indigo when you walk into the Kingpin's trade show. What are you seeing in terms of demand? What's growing? What's shrinking? And several people have mentioned selvage and dark and vintage. What we're speaking about there, and Michael can elucidate on this probably better and longer than I can, is the return to the more old-fashioned dark indigo denim. And not only the dark coloration, but also the fairly starchy, rigid denim fabrics that you probably associate with the first pair of jeans you ever bought, or that you saw, that have been worn for 20 years by your parents, and eventually got to the point where they were very soft and supple. How is the market moving in those terms? And are there individual pockets for each type of denim that are being plugged in with different users?
Yeah. On the selvage side of the business, in regards to men's, you're right. It's the product's made on a very old loom. It's very traditional. It's great marketing. It tends to make a much tighter product in its weave, and it's received on the men's side of the world quite well. I think these guys could probably agree with me. On the women's side of the business in Luxe, there's been a massive influx of blended product, Tencel, Pro Models, T400, different yarns in relationship to the performance of the product across a large spectrum of washes, where you can expose it heavily to chlorine and have rinses and get a lot more bang for your buck, if you will. For that other blended product where you end up having Pro Model and Tencel and things of this nature, you end up getting a product that is incredibly soft, very fluid, very elastic. And the higher tier brands on the women's side of the business have really dived deeply into it in regards to the footprint in their lines. And I think you'll end up seeing pressure from the lower brands in regards to price pointing to have that product in their lines. It's going to be interesting to see how they do it, because those piece goods are actually more expensive. And it's hard to make a $7 fabric for $2. So, in the future, nonetheless, I think that consumer is still going to demand it. We want what we can't necessarily have. And I think that over time, especially coming into this next year, you'll see mills coming out trying to look for new fibers to reinvent the weaves, the new fibers in a different way to be able to hit those $3 piece good pricing, where the American Eagles of the world can have those kinds of aesthetics that LA and everybody else has.
And that's what we've seen, certainly, is the drift of the looks, the feel, and the attitude that you were seeing in premium is now coming through into the mass market. And it's one of the reasons why even a retailer as embattled as JCPenney has had pretty good denim numbers in recent months, because those looks and feels are now available at that level. And that segues pretty naturally into two things I wanted to make sure we touched on. The old-fashioned production of jeans was a messy, environmentally hazardous process. And some leaders in the market, some very, very large brands, including Levi's, certainly comes to mind, and some smaller, more boutique-y ones, such as Acne and Nudie over in Europe also come to mind. What's being done to clean up the jeans manufacturing process? And everyone, of course, wants a clean planet. Everyone wants employees and apparel factories to be well paid. Because jeans are so visible, because they're universally worn around the world, they've kind of become the flashpoint for the battle for sustainability. And another issue of this is that, you know, many people, of course, would like to see the resurrection of the American garment manufacturing business. And no market has been better for boosting apparel production than premium denim. An entire industry has flourished in Los Angeles, not just with denim production, jeans production, but also with dye houses and wash houses, you know, that supply or in some way augment the jeans production process. Then again, this is something everybody wants, but how much of a premium people will pay for an environmentally responsible, humane product is still very much up for debate. I hate to put you on the spot once again,
No,
but I'm wondering how this plays
It's
out.
okay, you know, people constantly talk about organic cotton. It's 1% of all the cotton grown globally. It's almost nothing. And it really goes back to the point of what will you pay for it? There's environmental practices that you can have in manufacturing in regards to claiming chemistries and reclaiming water, solar, all these other things. They require capital investments on the manufacturing side, but what will the public pay for it? That's really it. And or will the retailer give up margin on it? Those are the, yeah, right. That's go. What's the God? What's the God? In my personal opinion, until it starts to really hit home, in your health or your back pocket or something like that, that's really when the paradigm shift takes place. I think that there are technologies that have come out that really, for example, genetically modified cotton. It might have a bad stigma to it, but at the end of the day, the breeding programs that some of these seed companies have come out, they've brought cotton forward that requires a third less water than conventional cotton to be grown, or growing hemp, which grows 4 times faster and 1/10 the amount of water of cotton. But will we accept the aesthetic of a hemp blend blue jean moving forward because of our environmental practices? You know, that's still a question that has to take place. I think from denim in relationship to sulfur dyes and indigo, it's a tough thing to deal with because of the laws of chemistry. There haven't been massive advancements in those chemistries, and it's a really difficult thing to do because of the fact that you're literally dealing with reductive chemistry. There's no way to change those laws of chemistry. But in regards to the practices, everybody wants to do it, everybody talks about it. I think it is a matter of time before it gets implemented heavily across the industry. But again, it's going to be based upon the consumption of the final consumer that will make that call.
And we're not there yet, certainly.
We're not there
There's
yet.
not demand.
We're not there yet.
Rebecca, do you see signs of at least the retailers that you talk with and of your own experience in the supply chain, at least exploring the possibility of increased domestic production?
I think that as a finance person and seeing what happens, I mean, I worked in retail for so long and then I went to the other side of finance. This street has, the retailers have incredible pressure from the finance community to make margins, to make their earnings. And so the pressure that these retailers have to show a profitability consistently, to show growth consistently, it's really hard for them to sacrifice margins in order to do good things by the environment. There's just too much pressure coming from the financial street. I will tell you that they'll do it as a novel idea and maybe take a cut or a margin cut on it to bring the customer into the store, but it'll be bought very low. It'll just be the traffic driver to get them into the stores. But the margin pressures that are out there, and then we all know we're in an insanely promotional environment, so the retailers are already feeling margin pressures because of the promos, and customers are getting used to these kind of promotions that it's going to be really difficult for them to the mass market anyway, to invest or to take those margin cuts to do what's right. I don't think that you might start to see that. I think there's more genuine care from maybe the millennials. They care a little bit about the environment and there's some interest there. So brands that kind of have that kind of target customer, you might see some emergence there. But I think it's going to be some time, and not until there's taxations, there's government pressure, that you'll see customers or mass retailers make that shift.
They'll be forced.
Yep.
Yeah, it'll be forced.
And, you know, we've seen with what's going on in Bangladesh in the past year about the reluctance of a lot of American retailers to sign on to anything which is even going to increase their legal liability in a situation like this,
Right.
regardless of the outrage that, pockets of consumers might have. That being the case, though, Maurice and Matt, you both produce in the U.S., and you avail yourself of production that's here. And I know, Maurice, when you and I first met, you talked about your dream of kind of wanting to be able to build an entire garment from start to finish in Williamsburg. How close are we? How far away are we?
Oh, I would think maybe about a year out before we get to the factory part. But yeah, the brand started out making jeans in China, and this year we'll be this coming year in 2014, we'll be producing all of our denim in the USA. I kind of, when, during the right after the recession, I started getting a sense of that, the time was now to start bringing things back to the USA. And with Obama talking about asking manufacturers to do more, I kind of took it on myself. I started with one style. That style became our best seller. We launched it in last May. It's called the Hope Jean. All my jeans are named after streets, so I kind of thought it kind of related to Obama, and it brought hope to all that kind of stuff. So knowing
It's the Affordable Jeans Act, right?
knowing one of the things that I also wanted to do, because our brand is known for having really good quality at a really affordable price. I won't say cheap, because we're not the cheapest jean out there, because we still use the best denims, fabrics, metals, all that all the companies use, and the premium companies use that have $200 jeans. But the way that we make it work is taking cuts on image, taking cuts. I have luxury retail buyers call me and make appointments. And I always have to tell them, we don't have a beautiful showroom. When you come over, we're going to throw the jeans on the floor.
I've been there.
Pick your stuff.
You're buying the product.
So, that's how imaging costs a lot into your margins, so that's how I keep the prices down. And also we have a skeleton staff, just me and my nephew. But we're still able to ship and sell stores worldwide.
How does the profitability, the price of the U.S.-made product compare to what you've done previously? You making a little bit less on it on a per-item basis?
Yeah, what we when we were doing import, the thing that made our brand special to retailers, that made them try us, is because we offered a 3.3 markup. We can't do that with Made in USA, but we still give a higher markup than the industry standard. So from our import jeans, let's say a basic style is $105. We offer that same equivalent model in Made in USA for $124, and the customers love it. It's only a few dollars more, and you're still getting that same high quality product of a jean that's $200, and it's been a winner for us.
Right. And Matt, you've produced mostly out of Los Angeles, the industry there.
Yeah, since day one, we've produced every piece to date in the USA. And that's all categories, been knitwear, fleece, tees, wovens, all categories. So it's been something that my wife and I are very, it's meaningful to us.
And it's obviously a challenge for the reasons Rebecca discussed. Is where does it come back to you in terms of speed to market? Because a lot of retailers now, with the market changing faster than it had, and the consumer not wanting to see the same thing on his second or her second visit to the store, how has the speed of market been affected by your dependence on your LA manufacturing base?
Well, I think because we are a smaller company, we have quicker turns. I mean, I can get a run, whether a recut or, a new style that books really well, in a previous season coming up, I can run an early run as, as short as 6 weeks. So I think that that speed to market has been an advantage for us, being a smaller company, being it all domestic. We employ 22 sewers in Los Angeles in our office, and we've been able to do all of our sampling right in the back room, and so we're able to really, when I put my name on the back of a jean, you have to, in my opinion, you have to back it up. And so for us, it's a very important piece of it to me, that quality control, that QC piece of it. So for us, I would say that swiftness to market has been in our advantage, and when a retailer like Barney's does well with this camo trouser I did last year, the team steps up and we're able to hit demand, in holiday sales last year, and it really helped the company grow quite a bit. So I think it's been a full advantage for us to do it domestically the way that we have.
I had so much faith in your brand, I put it on my piano. In the time we have left, if anyone has any questions, we'd be happy to take them. We have a few over here. Let's start with you, please.
I think you have a great opportunity to let the public know. I never knew there were any dangers in the processing like I do here at China. And I had no idea that there was any health risk in manufacturing. And you're asking the government to do something. They wouldn't know anything about it. I think that responsibly, you have a great opportunity to inform the public. And I think people would also want to do the right thing.
Well, I think many of the companies that have, and not just companies in the U.S., but companies overseas, I'm thinking of, what's that company in Vietnam who shows the kingpins that does such a great job?
Cytex.
Cytex.
Yeah, it's
They-
completely reclaimed water, does 87% of its power from solar. The entire building is covered in ivy, has air conditioning for all the sewers. It produces about 350,000 blue jeans a month. It's not small, and it makes for quite a few brands.
And it's growing, I mean, no
It
question
is
about
growing, and their business is growing. They are not the cheapest manufacturer in Asia, but they are competitive. And I think it's that mindset, the flip of that mindset, that has to happen across the industry that really needs to take place.
that. And we should mention also that there used to be hand sanding and sandblasting within factories that has not been completely eliminated. But a lot of it has been converted. There's laser production as an alternative, and more health, workplace safety regulations in some places. We cannot say it's universal at all.
Notice though unhealthy to manufacture.
What's that?
Sandblasting gets into the lungs of the workers, and it's been,
Yeah, you get what's called brown lung. It's close to what's called black lung that you get from coal slag. You absolutely have to wear a mask when you do sandblasting, potassium permanganate spraying, and things of that nature. There are companies that are making really long, big strides. Nike last week, it came out with waterless dyeing, and that's a huge leap in technology and the way that the product has been made historically. Now, what they charge for it and whether the customer will buy it is a different story. But they are making strides. They are making efforts. The industry makes efforts. Does the effort come to the shelf? That's the separation of it.
And I would like to add, there are efforts being made, even overseas. I know it's, 10 years ago, I'd go to Vietnam and the water would literally be blue.
Right. Blue rivers.
Blue rivers. And now, there are laws being made in the foreign countries as well. It's like China and Vietnam where denim is made that prevent that from happening. I mean, are there payoffs to the government there to get away with a little bit more than you should? Absolutely. But, they are making strides, and it is very different than it was 10, 15 years ago, where literally you would go to Vietnam and the rivers would be blue from the indigo.
and you don't have that in Los Angeles with the premium people there. Right? In the back there.
I wonder if anybody has given any thought to combining the American heritage of jeans with the Scottish heritage of
I think only in the last 2 hours would probably be Over here, please.
I'll just add to that, because what I was thinking was, if you could mix the Harris tweed with the cashmere and the denim, we have the perfect.
Yeah, we can certainly meet afterwards to discuss that. Right?
The macro reclaiming, I can't resist the panel. How do I wash my potato?
I'll take this one.
He's going to
This
say
is my
you don't.
fairway. To me, cotton as a textile is soft, so we want for it to be around as long as possible. So heat and abrasion at all breaks down that cotton, textile. So for me, what we have, and this is a lot of years, in the dressing room and giving the best advice possible, is cold is always good with a cold rinse, and then never dry. What we do is let it hang dry, and actually what we've actually gone to is even something back where you'd hang dry outside. There's this element of this natural way for it to let it dry that has been this beautiful aging, especially with the dry pair of jeans, been fantastic. Now what? Yeah, and it's just something, if you can do it, it's great, right?
You're like, I don't have a back porch.
Right, exactly. I'm in the Midwest, so.
He lives in Kansas City.
Spread them with holy water.
Yeah, it's just, I think at the end of, it's ideal to be able to do it outside, but just hanging them up even on the top of the washer is fine and so forth. But it's just no
Putting them
abrasion.
under the drying process.
That's
Right. Yeah, he hit on the point of cold inside out. If you're going to wash them in the washing machine, extremely small amounts of detergent. There really doesn't require a lot of detergent to actually clean the garment. Right. It's the chemistry it's thimbles that you actually need, not cups. Technically, that can work. It can kill bacteria. It doesn't kill 100% of all bacteria that can be formulated, but it does kill bacteria. Putting them in the freezer, it is a true statement.
Question over there, please.
I will tell you that so she wanted to know why, that there seems to be a resurgence of garment manufacturing coming back in LA, places like Tennessee, where you're hearing about it, but it hasn't been resurgent in New York as much as, and when can that happen? People like Andrew Rosen is supporting that. Ellen Tracy is also a big supporter of that. From a mass market point of view, again, it goes back to the margin and what you have to deliver to your street. I think that there are companies that look at that, and especially for the speed to market strategies so that they can get their sales. But the margin pressures on the retailers is tremendous. And until that goes away, they just can't afford the cost difference and the margin difference of manufacturing in Bangladesh versus in New York. You can't even compare it. Right. It's a huge amount of dollars. And anyone that's a publicly traded company has extreme pressure from the street. Now, if you're a private company, you have more opportunity to do that because you're not going to people like me and giving them numbers that are challenging you to show growth in your company. So I think that you will start to see a little bit more of that, but it's a lot about the margin pressure and profitability, unfortunately.
You'll see it in more simplistic products from an operations side, but in very simple terms, cost of real estate is very high in New York compared to Nashville or Kansas City or even LA.
In LA, yep.
Even LA.
So two things to take to note are that in a premium or luxury product, you have a greater margin for error immediately. And even for private companies, the standards of the banks for meeting the criteria that they need to produce, whether it's in terms of the product that they've shipped, the product that they've billed retailers for, those standards since 2008 are very high, and a lot of the larger banks really don't want to deal with smaller companies on that basis. Not to plug a competitor, but the New York Times had a story about domestic production in which a company in Pennsylvania was really hoping to make a run for it as a growing domestic concern. And basically one problem with one major retail account, and they weren't able to meet the standards of their loan, right? And so there's a great deal of pressure that way, and anything the consumer can do, to encourage that type of purchasing is going to be helpful because, right now I don't think the public markets or the private ones give special leniency to companies because they're producing domestically or engaging in these more sustainable practices that we talked about.
Right, it's consumer demand.
I think we're gonna need the consumer to actually start asking for made in USA product and start looking for more made in USA product. I can tell you and it's also a business philosophy. I can tell you a story that the factory owner in China told me one time. He was asking me to start a brand before I started my brand, and but I told him I didn't want to make like low end jeans, that I wanted to make a high price jean. And he's like, no, Malone, do low price jeans. I said, wouldn't you rather make maybe 20,000 jeans and make a larger profit? And he said, no, I'd rather make 100,000 jeans and make a $1 profit on each one, because it keeps my people busy and keeps them working. And ever since that, it kind of stuck with me. And it's been my goal to bring more production back to the U.S.
Sir, in the third row.
So I'm a jeans guy. I collect them, I buy them, I buy limited editions from all different kinds of companies. The problem I have is I become a gentleman of a certain age. So in market segment, I can't find, I order jeans, I bring them home, I put them on, they hit my knees, and I go, huh. And I don't want to wear my dad's jeans. So where are we going to find that fit that's for a guy of a certain age who doesn't want to wear Tommy Bahama? Doesn't want to go to Macy's and buy their Alfani brand. You know, that is a huge, for me, it's a giant missed market segment. Because again, I don't look like a gangster, but I need something that's going to be appropriate, it's going to fit well. And it's becoming more and more, and again, because of the economic downturn, a lot of the companies that I followed and purchased from no longer exist.
Right.
And I'm not seeing that fit that, I want to say it so creepy, a man fit. I see a boy fit, they come out of the package this big. Where's the man fit jean in the market for somebody, say, over 35 to 45?
We should let Maurice and Matt try to sell you now, I think.
We do.
It's only fair.
We do.
BaldwinDenim.com.
Yeah, and I'll second that, the WilliamsburgGarment.com. We do everything from a skinny boy jean to a slim jean that's not baggy, but it's like roomy, just enough room in the right places.
Have you done any better at finding jeans that fit better at higher prices than you have at more moderate ones? Or?
I find the consistency of product, I just did an experiment with American Eagle because they had a wash that I sort of liked. So I ordered 3 pair, because that's what I do. Every jean in the same size and fit was completely different.
Right.
So yes, I'm finding that within a price point, honestly, anything over $100 truly is a better,
Right.
consistency of fit.
It's an artisan product.
Yeah,
At that point.
because I've moved from being a man of a certain age to being a man of a certain size. I reminisce about being a man of a certain age now. Do we have time for one more, Lisa? Okay, one more question right in the front here, please.
How many factories could you keep busy? I'm from the middle of the United States, from Kansas City. We have people, we have empty factories out there. We could put them to work. How many do you want?
Well,
You and I need to talk after this. You live in my backyard.
well, I don't say this, but like my consumers do. They say I'm a newer, cooler Levi. So if you think like what Levi's could do, that's what I could do.
Okay, well, of course, we had Levi out there, we had the factory, we have, what's the name of our big blue jeans out there?
Lee,
Lee jeans, yeah. Lee jeans is, you know,
very, very different now.
yeah, very different. But it could be done.
Okay? Make sure you give us some information.
I think it honestly has to do with the volume of the companies, you know, and exactly what Maurice is talking about, the amount of sewers that you can keep consistently busy, you know. So I would love to cut and sew in my backyard, and because there's not the talent doesn't exist anymore. They've been dispersed. The factories are there. Missouri Sewing, I get quite a bit of our actual machines from Missouri Sewing, but the artisanship has been dead for production, and so I can't put a quality product at the level that I have to at the price points that I sell.
They could be training. We have kids from Columbia. We have kids from Kansas City, of course. We're teaching design and production out there, but they have no place to go to. Let's make jobs for them out there. They're there if we just create the.
Well, like Arnie said, that's been one of my goals since I started the brand is to I do production for not only my company but other brands and a lot of like small brands, and one of my goals was to like open a factory, and because I've learned like the fallbacks to manufacturing in U.S. and the fallbacks to manufacturing overseas and the advantage of both. The thing I discovered, well not discovered but I know, is that manufacturing in the U.S. is extremely time consuming. It's a lot of things that you gotta pull together and direct all the pieces. While a lot of companies manufacture overseas because it's simple. You send them a tech pack, which is like blueprints, and you don't worry about it. They handle everything over there for you. They send you your product back, and then you check it out and tell them what's wrong. Yeah, I want to bring that kind of thing to the USA, and where we can, get everything. All right.
There's been an interesting story in North Carolina, too, with Raleigh Denim that has done exactly what you've been talking about and has used a lot of equipment that had been abandoned by companies going overseas. They've done quite well. They do business at a high price point. They've done it quite well. They've opened retail stores. One of the biggest things they complain about is the difficulty of finding millennials who can be taught to work the equipment, because they're dealing with equipment in some cases has been restored and maybe 50 or 60 years old. But they are proceeding in that way. Sure.
And the thing is, factories have to be willing to work with small upstart designers, which is one of the hardest thing to do, is find a factory that's willing to do the numbers that a new brand or a new person in development can work with and build. Like he's doing 70 pieces per style. A lot of people are doing things like that. I only do 100. I do production starting at 100 pieces, rarely over 500 pieces. I'll keep it going. So finding like the right partners that's willing to grow with you are the challenge for making it in USA. So if you can do that, then you can get a lot of business.
I wanted to say one of the things that I think, in my personal opinion, that will force manufacturing back into the United States, if not the Western Hemisphere, is manufacturing inflation in Asia. For example, Target produces only about 9% of its goods in China now because China has become too expensive. They're going to Bangladesh, they're going to Cambodia, but what's going to happen is, as the requirement for protocols and operating procedures get stronger and stronger and stronger environmentally in these companies, you end up seeing a position where it's just over the entire term of the product, it's cheaper to manufacture it in the United States or Mexico or Canada or something like that and bring it back. It's a matter of time. It really is a matter of time.
Yeah, it's like with China, the explosion in China. I've been hearing from the factories starting a couple years ago that, they used to get kids, used to be able to move into the factory, work for a few years, then go back to your hometown and you have your life. Now they can't find people for those factories anymore because the kids are more educated now. They're going to college. They don't want jobs like that anymore.
They're closing at alarming rates in China because they simply can't get people that want to sew any longer. They'd rather have somebody do IT work or work at Starbucks.
Yeah, but it's getting closer to where
it's a matter of time.
Making jeans is about the same.
Brothers to donate for starting up businesses instead of the political party.
Ha.
Get thumbs up from people instead of thumbs down.
Right. You need, I do believe you need some governmental incentive. I don't necessarily believe that you need private money, but you do need incentive to bring the manufacturing back. And I agree with you, manufacturing is the backbone of an economy. You have to make a product, sell it at a profit, or export it at a profit. You can't, everybody can't work for Starbucks. It's got to have manufacturing in the country.
Well, the idea of not paying a weekly, monthly, or salary, but paying by the piece, and dividing it up into, careful machines, somebody only sets pockets, somebody only sets delivers. I mean, that can, you can get a pretty good price when you don't have somebody making the complete garment.
Right,
As opposed to
Parts, yeah.
piecing it out.
Yep.
What we call piecework.
right.
And we were very, very successful in Kansas City doing that up until nobody wanted to do it anymore. I mean, nobody wanted it. They wanted us to go overseas and get it cheap.
I blame the street. I'm playing.
Well, it's coming back.
Do we have time for one more, or?
I'm
It
gonna-
didn't seem to me you really needed a moderator. I was just gonna go on.
Well,
You can talk among yourselves.
I think what we're hearing is that a sequel to this denim panel is definitely on the program for next year, because we need to hear more about this fascinating topic. Actually, topics, because there were so many interesting issues that were brought up, from silhouette to city to country. And so I think everybody's voted with their heart and their mouth, and we will have more on jeans next year. We can't wait. Thank you for your fantastic.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay.